Yo, so this is the top half of my Guilty Pleasures top 10. If you want to see numbers 10 through 6, I'll leave a link down below, back to the previous video. But anyway, let's continue on with it. My fifth Guilty Pleasure, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship from Series 7 Part 1. This is an episode that seems to have gotten a lot of hate, and to be honest, I don't know why. This, for me, is a genuinely fun episode. I mean, okay, it's not the most deep or the most emotional, but you know what? It's got some fun stuff in it. Sometimes we just want a fun adventure with the Doctor. The basic premise of this one, when the 11th Doctor discovers a kind of Ark ship that's heading on a collision course with Earth, he puts together a team consisting of big game hunter John Riddell, a Egyptian Queen Nefertiti, his two friends Amy and Rory, and also, unwittingly, Rory's father Brian, played by Mark Williams. They soon discover that the ship has in fact been taken over by a trader named Solomon, and it contains the most precious cargo, dinosaurs. And you know what? Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is just a mad title, and it's just a mad episode. I mean, you've got, I mean, it's got some serious star power in there. I mean, as I mentioned, Mark Williams plays Rory's dad, Brian, and he's pretty fun to go with. You got David Bradley as the villain, who he would eventually come back to the franchise playing the first Doctor later on. I know about that. He's also got two robots voiced by David Mitchell and Robert Webb, both of whom are hilarious in this. And also you got Rupert Graves in there as John Riddell. You know what? He's great. He's fun in this. Just, I mean, one of my favourite bits, he comes in at the end with a tranquilizer gun and says, "Doctor, this is a two-man job," at which point Amy picks up and goes like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm easily worth two men. You can help too if you like." I mean, this is just a fun episode. Granted, it's not the most deep or the most emotional or even ties into everything that well, but you know what? Sometimes we just want a bit of fun, and you know what? For me, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is fun. My number 4, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar from Series 9. The reason why I feel this one works for me is that I personally feel Magician's Apprentice succeeded where I felt Asylum of the Daleks kind of failed. Here's the thing. Back in Series 7, when Asylum of the Daleks was being made, they kind of advertised that this episode would feature loads of different types of classic Daleks, which in fairness, it kind of does. However, my slight problem with it was that it said it was going to show all these great Daleks, all the great ones from the past, and I'm thinking, great, but then when you actually get down to the Asylum, it's difficult to tell the various types of Dalek apart. Whereas with The Magician's Apprentice, this, I feel, did it perfectly. The basic plot, the Doctor has seemingly disappeared and wiped himself out off history and the map. So Clara ends up rather reluctantly teaming up with the Doctor's old friend and nemesis, Missy, in order to try and find him. However, the Doctor, they are all eventually captured by a creature known as Colony Sarf and taken back to Skaro because Davros is dying and he needs to talk to him. And seeing a classic Dalek apprehend Clara and Missy as they have made an unbridled escape, that to me gave me that moment of pure whoa. Like, this was it done right. I mean, just seeing the classic Dalek in full brightness in the light of Skaro, that made it work. That for me was brilliant. You know what? The rest of the episode, the rest of the story is okay, but you know what? I still think it's a guilty pleasure for me. Just seeing classic Daleks on Skaro, the return of Julian Bleach as Davros, he's brilliant. And I think the story is a good one to be told. My number 3 for guilty pleasures, Time Heist from Series 8. Now, when I put up this top 10 guilty pleasures list on social media, several people said, Time Heist isn't a guilty pleasure. Time Heist is great. Time Heist is awesome. And you know what? I agree with them. You know what? Time Heist, I feel, is just pretty fun. Time Heist follows the Doctor and Clara as they seemingly unwillingly get roped into a plan to rob the most secure bank in the universe, the Bank of Karabraxos, a bank which has never been breached and is guarded by a mysterious creature known as the Teller, which can detect guilt and essentially melt your brain, and is also overseen by the sinister Miss Delphox, head of security. And I personally haven't seen that many heist movies. I mean, I can appreciate a good heist movie every now and then. I think I saw Mad Money a few years ago, but I'm not really one for heist movies. But I feel if I did watch any heist movies, this I think would be a great parody of traditional heist movies. I mean, it's fun, it's fast paced. You're constantly wondering how they're going to get out of the situation, and then they tie it all back together while still being distinctly Doctor Who. And you know what? That's just great fun. I mean, Doctor Who does heist movies. What more do you want? Now, number two is where I admit I'm probably going to get some arguments from people saying this isn't a guilty pleasure. And that's my number two, World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls from Series 10. Series 10 for me, I look back on it and think, okay, I'm glad I watched it, but I don't know, it's possibly one of the weaker series. But while I think Series 10 is possibly not as strong as some of the others, the last two episodes, they were brilliant. I mean, okay, they kind of ruined it early by advertising that John Sim would be coming back as the Master. Okay, that was ruined fairly early on. And they also mentioned early on, and showed early on with pictures, that the Mondasian Cybermen would be coming back. So, okay, it wasn't really a surprise, but even then, I'm going to say this about World Enough in Time, even then, the last 5 minutes, even though I knew it was coming and it had to be coming, when it happened, I was still horrified. I mean, okay, you can look back on the Mondasian Cybermen in the 10th Planet and think, maybe they look a bit cheap. Maybe they're not as great as some of the Cybermen we got later on. But even so, just to hear that voice and see that image, it was just chilling. And then, even though I could see it coming, when it was revealed that Bill was a Cyberman, I still felt horror. Just And at the end of part one, I was still thinking to myself, how's the Doctor going to get out of this one? I mean, you got Bill is now a Cyberman, and you got two versions of the Master. This is chilling. Truly was. Now, I say this is a guilty pleasure because when I had to choose a personal favourite episode from each series, this story was my favourite from Series 10. That's the reason it's on the list. I admit it's probably not a guilty pleasure, and it is probably seen as one of the great episodes of New Who, but you know what? It's on the list. It's a number two, and it was chilling, but then it also wrapped everything up nicely, and I feel it's a good one. But what have I put at number one? Well, my number one guilty pleasure Doctor Who episode of New Who is The Unicorn and the Wasp from Series 4. Everyone has a kind of weird period of their lives when they kind of go obsessed with something, and while it doesn't last forever, they become obsessed with something a little weird. For me, a few years ago, I did end up in an Agatha Christie phase. I don't know why. I just grew to love Agatha Christie books. I ended up reading a lot of them. I started out with Murder on the Orient Express, and I went from there. I started reading some of the greats. I mean, Murder on the Orient Express, The Body in the Library, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. I ended up reading a lot of Agatha Christie works. And so to see Doctor Who do Agatha Christie, and they had teased it at the end of the previous series when the Doctor said goodbye to Martha, but just to see them do essentially an Agatha Christie novel in Doctor Who, it was pretty fun. And Agatha Christie part of the action. It's an episode that I always find myself coming back to, and I love every time I watch it. I mean, I know this isn't a really good episode that you can re-watch, given that once you've watched it once, you know who the murderer is. So it's kind of spoiled there from there on in. But you know what? It's fun. I mean, Agatha Christie and a giant wasp. That's pretty good. But one other weird thing I might say about the episode is that, strangely enough, before I watched the episode, I was kind of still interested and rather disturbed about what had actually happened to Agatha Christie. For those who don't know, she actually did go missing for 9 days back in the 1920s. And surprisingly, I was interested in kind of how and why she had disappeared and all of that stuff. But then, strangely, after watching the episode, I found I don't really wonder about it that much anymore. I mean, okay, I know the difference between fantasy and reality. I know that Agatha Christie didn't really go missing because of a giant wasp. Of course not. That's ridiculous. But strangely enough, after watching this episode, I kind of stopped wondering. I don't know. Maybe it just kind of seemed a thing of, okay, that's Doctor Who does Agatha Christie's disappearance. You know what? Maybe it's just one of those things we'll never know why she truly disappeared for that time. But you know what? I stopped wondering after that, and I still find it a great episode to go back and rewatch, and it is one that I constantly come back to. Seeing the Doctor and his companion Donna interact with Agatha Christie, it's just wonderful. And you know what? It's my number one guilty pleasure episode. Well, there you go. My top 10 Doctor Who guilty pleasure episodes. Gridlock, The Witchfinders, School Reunion, The Lodger, The Next Doctor, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, Time Heist, World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls, and The Unicorn and the Wasp. You know what? I'd love to hear some of your guilty pleasures if you have any down below, or for anyone who does end up watching this. But you know what? Until next time, thanks for watching.